Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This Shabbos is a very special Shabbos, Parshat Vayeitzei. Vayeitzei Yaakov Beersheva Vayelech Harana. And Yaakov goes out to Haran, where he promised his mother and father he will not marry from the women of Canaani, of the Canaanites, but he will marry from internal in his family, a Jewish wife. And so he goes in the same path as his father Yitzchak, and that is he meets his future wife at the well. And it is over there that he meets his wife Rachel, and he works for Rachel for 7 years. And it's at that time, after working for 7 years, that he is ready to get married to Rachel. And we know this famous story of the famous switch that happens, and that is that Lavan, her father, says it's not the way we do this over here, and he switches Leah instead of Rachel. And that is why it is customary that we have bedekins at a wedding. We have what's called the veiling of the bride. It is an Ashkenazi custom, and even some Sephardim do it, where we put a veil over the bride's face to commemorate this incident in which Lavan tricked Yaakov with Leah and not with Rachel. And so after he gets tricked, he says he wants to work for another 7 years and for Rachel, and which he does, and he gets married to two sisters. There's a question over here, and that is, it says that our forefathers kept the entire Torah. And if the forefathers kept the entire Torah, how could it be that they married multiple sisters? Now, marrying multiple women was technically legal by the Torah until about 1100 years ago, when there was a decree that was made that you cannot marry two women. And the reason is because ultimately they're going to get jealous of each other. Obviously, today in the United States, it's illegal to have polygamy in general, but the reason is that the two wives are going to get jealous from each other and create conflict. And it happened by Rabbeinu Gershom, where his one wife was plotting to kill the other, and that's when he said, enough, this is a bad policy, and we have to change it. But in the Torah itself, it says you cannot marry two sisters, and it goes back to the same reason, is that two sisters are going to be jealous of each other. And we see that exactly happens with Leah and Rachel. Rachel gets jealous of Leah that she's having children. Leah gets jealous of Rachel that Yaakov likes her more. And so we have the same concept in the Torah. And so how is it that Yaakov, who keeps the entire Torah, marries two sisters? And to answer this, the Rebbe explains something very unique. And that is, when the forefathers kept the Torah and mitzvot, it was all voluntary. And therefore, it wasn't an actual command. The commandments only came by the giving of a Torah, which was 500 years later by the time of Moses on Sinai. But it was all voluntary. And therefore, that's why Abraham waits till 100 years old to be told by God, 99 years old, to be told by God to get a bris, because until he's told by God to get a bris, it becomes voluntary and not permanent. And therefore, he waited until that time. But for Yaakov, later on, he's going to learn in the Torah that we're not allowed to marry two sisters. But what's not voluntary is, already from the time of the 7 Noahide laws, is you cannot shame another person in public. It says if you shame someone in public as if you killed them, you're not allowed to kill someone in the Torah. And that law was already applied by the 7 Noahide laws. And so Yaakov knew that Leah was about to be, Leah was going to be brought out. Rachel knew that Leah was going to be brought out instead of her, and so she gave her special signs that Yaakov gave to Rachel, because he knew that her father was a trickster, and because she didn't want to get shamed in public. And so Yaakov marries Leah at that time, but he also marries Rachel because he promises her that he's going to marry her. So he makes an oath, and he doesn't want to shame her in public. And so he's willing to violate the future Torah edicts, if you want to say, because the current Torah edicts is you're not allowed to shame someone, which teaches us something so powerful, is that how far Yaakov is ready to go in order not to shame someone. He's ready to marry another woman that he wasn't planning on marrying. He was only planning on marrying her younger sister because he didn't want her to be shamed in public. He didn't want her to get hurt and shamed. And so we learn from this how careful we have to be to make sure that we never offend someone or do something wrong to someone, especially in public where there was a tremendous scene. The entire city was there at the wedding, and if he didn't pull the trigger, he didn't get married to her, ultimately she would have been very, very saddened. And so it teaches us our own lesson in our own life, that sometimes we have to be so careful not to hurt someone's feelings, because it's somewhat as if, especially shaming someone in public, it's almost as if we are killing them psychologically. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And this merit, the merit of the Shabbos, of the light, Shabbos will bring more light into people's lives. Every day we add a light, the light of Hanukkah, the light of the menorah. May we merit that we be able to light the ultimate menorah, and that is with loving one another through and having senseless love. We'll be able to rebuild the Holy Temple and light the seven-prong menorah in the Holy Temple. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. See you tonight earlier, 6 o'clock, and tomorrow, 10:15.